Hello and welcome to another Lamp Bible study. We are in the book of Numbers. We will be starting with Numbers chapter 16. I am reading in a NIV Collegiate Bible, and there is quite a bit on my mind when it comes to things that have been happening. And so I thank you very much for joining me on another Lamp Bible study, and we will continue to seek God's wisdom through his holy word. So let's get started. Korra, Dathan, and Abiram. And we are again in Numbers chapter 16. Korah, son of Izar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab and son of Peleth, became insolent, and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, you have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly? So again, we're in Numbers, and Moses is still in charge, or he's still the leader of the Israelites, and will be through the next book. So we went over his story in Exodus, and how even at birth there was danger for him to even die then, because the devil was after that leadership, and the Lord protected him and saved him. And so he ended up eventually becoming the leader of Israel and led them out of Egypt. And then we have him obtaining the Ten Commandments, as well as instructions on the building of the tabernacle. And so he's continually leading the people, continually showing what it is to follow the footsteps of the Lord. And Moses has even been opposed by his brother Aaron at one point. So here we are once again with people within the Israel community going up against Moses. For what reason? For what is it now? Sometimes I know that people get tired of leadership, but what are the reasons for that? Is it because they're tired of leadership because the leadership has gone astray, or is it because of some other hidden agenda or some other agenda? Do people talk to God themselves before they question leadership? When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all his followers, in the morning the Lord will show who belongs to him and who is holy, and he will have that person come near him. The man he chooses, he will cause to come near him. You, Korah, and all your followers are to do this. Take censers, and tomorrow put fire in and incense in them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far. Moses also said to Korah, now listen, you Levites. Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near himself to do the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them? He has brought you and all your fellow Levites near himself, but now you are trying to get the priesthood too. It is against the Lord that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him? Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, we will not come. Isn't it enough that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the desert? And now you also want to lord it over us. Moreover, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you gouge out the eyes of these men? no, we will not come. So once again, the whole issue with being slaves in Egypt and being rescued and being brought out of Egypt, now you have these two that are saying that Egypt was a land of milk and honey. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is beyond words. Now we see that there's deception. Now we see that there's an issue here, because God's been with them. God's been providing them the manna. God's been providing them with water and supplying their needs. And yet they're complaining. Not only are they complaining, but they're complaining technically about God, even though they've left slavery, even though that they've left them being insignificant and being taken for granted. And yet here we go with an issue with whether it be leadership, jealousy, or whatever it is, where they're bringing up Egypt again and stating what it wasn't. It wasn't the promised land, and it was not a land flowing with milk and honey. What are your thoughts or feelings? What are some things that come to mind when you read this? How does it make you feel? Especially considering everything that we've read so far, even including past Bible studies, that once again Moses is being questioned about his leadership. What does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not accept their offering. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, nor have I wronged any of them." Moses said to Korah, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow, you and they and Aaron. Each man is to take his censer and put incense in it, 250 censers in all, and present it before the Lord. You and Aaron are to present your censers also." So each man took his censer, put fire and incense in it, and stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance to the tent of meeting. When Korah had gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the entire assembly. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Separate yourselves from the assembly, so I can put an end to them at once." But Moses and Aaron fell face down and cried out, "O God, God of the spirits of all mankind, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins?" Then the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, "Move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of all their sins." So they moved away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Dathan and Abiram had come out and were standing with their wives, children, and little ones at the entrances to their tents. So we see that not only did Moses have a quick conversation with the Lord, he pleaded, because he pleaded with the Lord because the Lord was ready to wipe all of them out. All of the people who sided with these three, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And so Moses didn't want that. He just wanted the sin. He just wanted a correction. But he didn't know, of course, what the judgment was going to be. But he didn't want if it was going to be a severe judgment, he didn't want all of Israel to suffer from that because of only a few. And so he immediately spoke up and he had a conversation with the Lord. And the Lord agreed and told him to have them separate themselves from those three families. Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and that it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death and experience only what usually happens to men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt. So you notice how he's talking, because the men were not just having an issue with Moses, they were having an issue with the Lord. The Lord was leading Moses. The Lord was teaching Moses. The Lord was showing Moses how to lead his people. And so, as you can see, Moses is telling them, he's saying, I am just the servant. I'm the servant leader yes, I'm leading you by instructing you what the Lord is telling me, but the Lord is guiding us. The Lord is telling me what to do. And so he's showing here that he is the issue that these people had was with the Lord and Moses. And so I don't understand why you would have an issue with God, especially when his presence was there, he was providing you with everything, other than just feeling too much pride, to not be humble, to think that things were better, or there's a better way, or there's an alternative when there is not. And so, there's just a lot here. As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, with their households and all Korah's men and all their possessions. They went down alive into the grave, with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us too." And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to take the censers out of the smoldering remains and scatter the coals some distance away, for the censers are holy. The censers of the men who sin at the cost of their lives. Hammer the censers into sheets to overlay the altar, for they were presented before the Lord and have become holy. Let them be a sign to the Israelites." So the Israelite community once again saw the Lord's glory and saw actual action happen. The earth opened up. The people who were in rebellion, that's an important word throughout the Old Testament, throughout the Bible, throughout knowing the wisdom, is rebellion. And so that might be a good word to look up in the Bible, and to reference back in. What does that mean? What does rebellion mean? And what happens? What are the consequences of rebellion? So these men were rebelling. They were rebelling against Moses, but they were truly rebelling against God. And so what kind of thoughts or feelings come to mind with that? There's a lot of instances where I have to look at where I see people who are leaders, and they sometimes you start questioning them, and you questioning their leadership because it seems off. It doesn't seem that it's correct. So then I go to the Lord, but when I feel that the Lord is telling me what I'm feeling is correct, then there may be an issue. And so then you also have, so you have these people who were trying to be leaders in the Israel community, but they were being leaders for the wrong reasons and the wrong things. And then you have Moses, who was following God's path. And so as a community, I feel like as a community, they needed to bring it to the Lord and pray about it before making some type of decision to even follow these three who were trying to basically create an uprising and rebel. Also, rebelling is, again, back to rebelling the word, it's used throughout the Bible. And there are consequences to it. So that you may take a moment to do some study on that, on that word and the reason for it. And because it is important to understand what the consequences are. And so the people were scared after they saw that the earth swallowed the people that were in rebellion, and as well, fire came down. Fire came out and consumed the 250 men who were offering censers to justify the three, Korra, Dathan, and Abram. So it goes to show you, especially when they're not following along, that there are consequences to their action, or once again, providing inappropriate offerings to the Lord. Remember, Aaron, his two sons were consumed by fire because they provided inappropriate fire offerings to the Lord. And here we go again. 250 men were providing inappropriate offerings to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, let's continue to read. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to take the censers out of the smoldering remains and scatter the coals some distance away, for the censers are holy, the censers of the men who sinned at the cost of their lives. Hammer the censers into sheets to overlay the altar, for they were presented before the Lord and have become holy. Let them be a sign to the Israelites." So I wanted to read that part again because the censers were still considered holy. And so they had to go ahead and create a new way to be hammered into sheets for them to overlay the altar, and were presented before the Lord as a sign to the people so they could understand. Stop doing this. Basically, stop thinking you can provide alternative or inappropriate offerings. You can that it's okay to rebel. Look at this. This is an example. So Eleazar, the priest, collected the bronze censers brought by those who had been burned up, and he had them hammered out to overlay the altar, as the Lord directed him through Moses. This was to remind the Israelites that no one except a descendant of Aaron should come to burn incense before the Lord, or he would become like Korra and his followers. The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. "You have killed the Lord's people," they said. Now, once again, why are they complaining? And literally, they're complaining and saying that Moses killed the people who were in rebellion. These weren't priests. These weren't consecrated. They were just possibly men that that maybe the community thought were following in the footsteps correctly, or following in worship correctly. But then they rose up and rebelled. And already, just the next day, the Israelite community is grumbling against Moses again. Why am I pausing and repeating this? It's because you're going to notice a pattern. You're going to notice a pattern in here if you have not already. Particularly grumbling and rebellion. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned toward the tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from the assembly so I can put an end to them at once." And they fell face down. Then Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censers and put incense in it, along with fire from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Wrath has come out from the Lord. The plague has started." So Aaron did as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started among the people, but Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. But 14,700 people died from the plague, in addition to those who had died because of Korra. Then Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance to the tent of meeting, for the plague had stopped. So I believe that these people were part of the people that continue to rebel, continue to grumble and complain. Some of them probably even were ones that were complaining about not having meat. Some of them were probably always constantly complaining and acting like that God wasn't enough for them, that it wasn't enough. Even though that they were now free, even though they've been through what they've been through and seen what they've seen, it was like the living God is not enough for them. So they were continually in rebellion. So it just, I don't know. I don't know how I would think or feel during that time. I know with my walk with the Lord right now, I would completely separate. I would do like Moses said and completely separate myself from that portion of the community. I would, talk to Moses, hey, pray for them. And that's what he did. That's why he sent Aaron out with the incense, because even though people rebellion, there is still that want to have the, for forgiveness. There's still that want for the punishment not to be as severe. But at the same time, you don't know what that person is thinking. You don't know if that person is in complete rebellion, if they're in complete rejection of God, which there's nothing, unfortunately, that we can do except for prayer. We can only go to God, and God will know. God will judge, and he's just. He knows what exactly that person's thinking. Let's continue to read. The budding of Aaron's staff. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and get 12 staffs from them. One from the leader of each of their ancestral tribes. Write the name of each man on his staff. On the staff of Levi, write Aaron's name, for there must be one staff for the head of each ancestral tribe. Place them in the tent of meeting in front of the testimony where I meet with you. The staff belonging to the man I choose will sprout, and I will rid myself of this constant grumbling against you by the Israelites. So Moses spoke to the Israelites, and their leaders gave him 12 staffs, one for the leader of each of their ancestral tribes. And Aaron's staff was among them. Moses placed the staffs before the Lord in the tent of the testimony. The next day Moses entered the tent of the testimony and saw that Aaron's staff, which represented the house of Levi, had not only sprouted, but had budded, blossomed, and produced almonds. Then Moses brought out all the staffs from the Lord's presence to all the Israelites. They looked at them, and each man took his own staff. The Lord said to Moses, put back Aaron's staff in front of the testimony to be kept as a sign to the rebellious. This will put an end to their grumbling against me, so that they will not die. Moses did just as the Lord commanded him. The Israelites said to Moses, we will die. We are lost. We are all lost. Anyone who even comes near the tabernacle of the Lord will die. Are we all going to die? So it looks like at this point there was a lot of issues. There was a lot of issues. There was no confusion. There was just mass rebellion and contention. All the tribes were having issues because here is this person, once again, a person that they feel is at this point, to me, they're acting like he's a stranger again. Like he came, to Egypt as a stranger to them, and told them, I am here. I am sent by I am. And they didn't quite understand it until the signs started happening and things started happening. And then finally they were released, and Moses led them out. But here we are again, once again, where it's almost like they're falling back into, we have our own leaders, we have our own groups, we want to do what we want to do, we don't want to be led by you, we want to follow our own leaders and our own rules, even though once again they're led by God, God is utilizing Moses as his servant to lead his people. And yet we have a constant rebellion, constant challenge is what Moses is having to go through. So that's another word, challenge. that's going on right now. Moses is constantly being challenged. Moses and Aaron, over and over again. In fact, Moses was even similarly just challenged on multiple occasions. So here we go, and God's given Moses an opportunity to once again and once and for all stop these challenges and stop these rebellions. And so they used something that was visual, a staff, Aaron's staff to be precise, because he was the leader of the tribe of Levi. And so not only did the staff bud and blossom, but it also produced almonds as a sign. It happened overnight. And so now we're seeing the Lord is he's solving these problems. He's solving them not only spiritually, but physically. And so now the people, once again, they're seeing this sign and they know they rebelled. And once again, they're scared. Just like they were scared yesterday when the earth opened up and the fire came and they were like, well, we're going to die because we are rebelling. It's like people, and that happens to everybody when it comes down to it, realistically, because we're human. We end up doing something, we do something bad, whether we thought about it or not, whether it's intentional sin or unintentional sin, and then we don't think about the any type of consequences there are until after the fact, or once those consequences start. And then it's like, oh my gosh, oh my God, please help me, especially if you are someone that relies on your faith, and it's like you are immediately pleading with God to help. And guess what? Just to let you know, he loves you so much. He loves us so much that he does answer us. He will hear us, and he will stop the occurrence. He will stop judgment, or he will stop the issue that you're having. And so continue to trust in the Lord. Correct yourself, because there's always time to correct yourself. There's always time to stop and humble yourself before the Lord, to understand what you did or come to terms with what you did, and humble yourself immediately before the Lord and ask for forgiveness, because he is abundant in love and forgiveness. And he already knows what's going to happen, but he's just waiting on you. He's just waiting on me to go, humble myself, get on my knees and say, dear Lord, God Almighty. And that's something that I've come to realize that I've said a lot, Jesus, Lord God Almighty, something even in my prayer, to humble myself and to understand that there's a difference between man and God. And so, there's time, and there's always that love that he's willing to give. He's willing to show and provide for us. And so he also had the staff put back in front of the testimony as a sign. And so that once again, he's providing a sign for the people, and the people are already too scared. They're thinking they're going to die. Let's continue to read. Duties of priests and Levites. The Lord said to Aaron, you, your sons, and your father's family are to bear the responsibility for offenses against the sanctuary, and you and your sons alone are to bear the responsibility for offenses against the priesthood. Bring your fellow Levites from your ancestral tribe to join you and assist you when you and your sons minister before the tent of the testimony. They are to be responsible to you and are to perform all the duties of the tent, but they must not go near the furnishings of the sanctuary or the altar, or both they and you will die. They are to join you and you're responsible for the care of the tent of meeting, all the work at the tent, and no one else may come near where you are. You are to be responsible for the care of the sanctuary and the altar, so that wrath will not fall on the Israelites again. I myself have selected your fellow Levites from among the Israelites as a gift to you, dedicated to the Lord to do the work of at the tent of meeting. But only you and your sons may serve as priests in connection with everything at the altar and inside the curtain. I am giving you the service of the priesthood as a gift. Anyone else who comes near the sanctuary must be put to death. So we see that the Lord is providing additional help, or making sure that Aaron understands that his fellow Levites are going to be in charge of the tent of meeting and in charge of the things that are of the tent of meeting and held responsible. And so, and this is also, again, to make sure that people understand the difference between to know that they are dealing with God, and God is holy, and to hold him in reverence. Offerings for priests and Levites. Then the Lord said to Aaron, I myself have put you in charge of the offerings presented to me. All the holy offerings the Israelites give me, I give to you and your sons as your portion and regular share. You are to have the part of the most holy offerings that is kept from the fire, from all the gifts they bring me as most holy offerings, whether grain or sin or guilt offerings. That part belongs to you and your sons. Eat it as something most holy. Every male shall eat it. You must regard it as holy. This also is yours, whatever is set aside from the gifts of all the wave offerings of the Israelites. I give this to you and your sons and daughters as your regular share. Everyone in your household who is ceremonially clean may eat it. I give you all the finest olive oil and all the finest new wine and grain they give the Lord as the first fruits of their harvest. All the land's first fruits that they bring to the Lord will be yours. Everyone in your household who is ceremonially clean may eat it. Everything in Israel is to be devoted to the Lord is yours. The first offspring of every womb, both man and animal, that is offered to the Lord is yours. But you must redeem every firstborn son and every firstborn male of unclean animals. When they are a month old, you must redeem them at the redemption price set at 5 shekels of silver, according to the sanctuary shekel, which weighs 20 gerahs. But you must not redeem the firstborn of an ox, a sheep, or a goat. They are holy. Sprinkle their blood on the altar and burn their fat as an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Their meat is to be yours, just as the breast of the wave offering and the right thigh are yours. Whatever is set aside from the holy offerings the Israelites present to the Lord, I give to you and your sons and daughters as your regular share. It is an everlasting covenant of salt before the Lord for both you and your offspring. So, this is wonderful. I mean, the whole Israelite community was to give their best of everything, their best cattle, their best farm produce. And so the workers of the tabernacle got to partake in the best of everything, and the best there was. And that, so they already were being provided from the Lord. And so they got to partake in that. That's wonderful. They didn't have to till the field, or they didn't have to shepherd flocks and such. They just had to work in, the tabernacle and do the workmanship of God and help people. And then they would be able to partake here on earth what was offered to the Lord. That is amazing. That is wonderful. And the Lord has always liked that. Even it immediately reminds me of the Last Supper. It reminds me of Jesus feeding the 5,000 or the thousands of people with fish and bread, because that's what the Lord is. That's what he does. He loves us that much that he wants to provide, and overly provide, and not only overly provide, but provide us with the best. Even at the wedding when Jesus was asked to make wine out of water, and he did it. And then they said, wow, this is the best wine. Why did you save the best wine for the end of the celebration? That just goes to show you. That just goes to show us just how much the Lord loves us, even with our sin, even when we sin. As long as we humble ourselves and return to him and correct ourselves, he's there. He's there willingly and ready to provide, ready to be our caregiver, our protector, and shield. And so this is great that they're able to partake in the best of what is provided. Let's continue to read. The Lord said to Aaron, "You will have no inheritance in their land, nor will you have any share among them. I am your share and your inheritance among the Israelites. I give to the Israelites all the tithes in Israel as their inheritance in return for the work they do while serving at the tent of meeting. From now on, the Israelites must not go near the tent of meeting, or they will bear the consequences of their sin and will die. It is the Levites who are to do the work at the tent of meeting and bear the responsibility for offenses against it. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. They will receive no inheritance among the Israelites. Instead, I give to the Levites as their inheritance the tithes that the Israelites present as an offering to the Lord. That is why I said concerning them, they will have no inheritance among the Israelites." The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Levites and say to them, when you receive from the Israelites the tithe I give you as your inheritance, you must present a tenth of that tithe as the Lord's offering. Your offering will be reckoned to you as grain from the threshing floor or juice from the winepress. In this way, you also will present an offering to the Lord from all the tithes you receive from the Israelites. From these tithes you must give the Lord's portion to Aaron the priest. You must present as the Lord's portion the best and holiest part of everything given to you. Say to the Levites, when you present the best part, it will be reckoned to you as the product of the threshing floor or the winepress. You and your household may eat the rest of it anywhere, for it is your wages for your work at the tent of meeting. By presenting the best part of it, you will not be guilty in this matter. Then you will not defile the holy offerings of the Israelites, and you will not die." Now, thinking about this, there's a lot to consider and lots to think about and lots of ways to go about this. Thinking about ourselves in our walk with the Lord. Do we give our best when we walk with the Lord? Do we give our best to walk with the Lord? Do we give our best to the Lord? That's a question. Do we find time to spend with the Lord, to read the Lord's holy word that he freely gives us? Do we find time to pray? Now, again, and I've mentioned this in a previous Bible study, when you pray, don't just pray like you're asking for everything, like it's a one-way street, like it's your prayer, that's it, there's nothing else there. That's incorrect. The Lord is a living God. He will speak to you. Hold a conversation. Listen. Pause. When you have a conversation with another person, don't you pause or don't you allow for that person to speak? Don't you allow for them to continue their sentence and their conversation with you in order to have a conversation? I mean, that's what it's about, right? So do we take time in our prayer? Are we giving 100% of ourselves? Are we giving some portion of ourselves? Are we giving any portion to ourselves? Are we finding that time to read the Bible or meditate on the Lord's word in our heart, in our mind? Are we finding that time to pray? Are we finding that time to praise the Lord, to worship the Lord? Whether it be with ourselves or with others. And so I know a lot of times in life, it can be difficult. At different points in your life, it can be difficult to find a time to attend Bible studies, or it could be a difficult time to attend church, or it could be a difficult time to have time to pray. But that is incorrect. You do have time to pray. You do have time to have a moment with God. You have time to use the restroom. You have time to take a moment to think to yourself. It may feel like you don't, but unless you're literally working yourself to the bone, and even then call out to God And even then, that's what you need to understand. At all times is the right time to have a conversation with the Lord. At all times is the right time to ask. That prevents the rebellion. That prevents the challenges, and the issuing and challenging others, and challenging what you're understanding. And even going as far as challenging the Lord, to test the Lord. So take that moment. Take that moment. No matter where you are, whether it's in an elevator, whether it's in your vehicle, if you need to pull over, or if you can just think while you're driving, take that time to speak to the Lord and have a conversation. Take that moment if you are early 15 minutes and you don't need to be anywhere. Take your phone out, take your tablet out, take the physical Bible out. Read a few passages, read a passage, just open it up. Just open it up and randomly skim through, or open it up and see where you open to and read there. There's always a reason. There's a reason for everything, because God knows. God already knows what's going to happen when you do. God already knows what course of action's going there. But he's waiting for you. He's waiting for us. He's waiting for me. He's waiting for us to do what we need to do on our end as well. And that is taking that time, no matter what time it is. But taking what we can and utilizing it to walk with the Lord. And that's, I 100% believe that these Bible studies do for me. I hope that they help you. I pray that they help you. But again, this message, this word, I want to, again, if this helps you, don't thank me. Don't thank me at all. I take no credit for this, because I'm just here as the messenger. I would love to be the messenger. I want to be the messenger. I want to read. I find it it's pleasing to my soul. It's pleasing to myself to be able to share the message, to be able to share the gospel. And so take that opportunity and thank the Lord. Praise the Lord. Don't praise me. Praise the Lord. Thank him for everything, and continue to read. If you're not there yet, continue to read, continue to seek that wisdom and understand why, and understand what works for you, what's gonna work for you, because he's working for you already. Just want to put that out there. Let's continue to read. The water of cleansing. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "This is a requirement of the law that the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Give it to Eleazar the priest. It is to be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence." So a heifer that doesn't have a blemish and not have been worked, basically, under a yoke, like has not been utilized, has not been worked. And they're supposed to give it to Izar so that he can slaughter it. Then outside the camp. Then Eleazar the priest is to take some of its blood on his finger and sprinkle it 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. While he watches, the heifer is to be burned, its hide, flesh, blood, and offal. The priest is to take some cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet wool and throw them into the burning heifer. So there's a lot of important things going here. The sprinkling of 7 times, we know 7, even in Genesis, which we'll get to later, where that comes from and how 7 is significant. We also, hyssop is going to be something that we're going to see several times, and the importance of that and the roles it plays throughout the Bible. After that, the priest must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. He may then come into the camp, but he will be ceremonially unclean till evening. The man who burns it must also wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he too will be unclean till evening. A man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and put them in a ceremonially clean place outside the camp. They shall be kept by the Israelite community for use in the water of cleansing. It is for purification from sin. The man who gathers up the ashes of the heifer must also wash his clothes, and he too will be unclean till evening. This will be a lasting ordinance both for the Israelites and the aliens living among them. Whoever touches the dead body of anyone will be unclean for 7 days. He must purify himself with the water on the third day, and on the seventh day, then he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself on the third and seventh days, he will not be clean. Whoever touches the dead body of anyone and fails to purify himself defiles the Lord's tabernacle. That person must be cut off from Israel, because the water of cleansing has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. His uncleanness remains on him. This is the law that applies when a person dies in a tent. Anyone who enters the tent and anyone who is in it will be unclean for 7 days. In every open container without a lid fastened on it will be unclean. Anyone out in the open who touches someone who has been killed with a sword, or someone who has died a natural death, or anyone who touches a human bone or a grave will be unclean for 7 days. For the unclean person, put some ashes from the burned purification offering into a jar and pour fresh water over them. Then a man who is ceremonially clean is to take some hyssop, dip it in the water, and sprinkle the tent and all the furnishings and the people who were there. He must also sprinkle anyone who has touched a human bone or a grave, or someone who has been killed, or someone who has died a natural death. The man who is clean is to sprinkle the unclean person on the third and seventh days, and on the seventh day he is to purify him. The person being cleansed must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and that evening he will be clean. But if a person who is unclean does not purify himself, he must be cut off from the community, because he has defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water of cleansing has not been sprinkled on him, and he is unclean. This is a lasting ordinance for them. The man who sprinkles the water of cleansing must also wash his clothes, and anyone who touches the water of cleansing will be unclean till evening. Anything that an unclean person touches becomes unclean, and anyone who touches it becomes unclean till evening. So we are again in the Old Testament, and this is under the law, and this is again while the Lord was living with the community, or residing with the community in a form, So again, could be no sin. Had to follow rules, particular rules, and practices to the T. There was no. You could not sway. You could not move to the right or left. You could not make changes to it. This is what you had to follow, and so. These are the instructions that they are given, the Israelites are given, in order to remain holy and with the Lord. And as we have seen, just in the few chapters that we have read, how difficult it is for the people to continually to do this, and how some, as in the people who did not believe the three priests, were able to go to Moses and say, okay, is this okay? What does the Lord say? Even Moses himself sent Aaron throughout, once the plague had started, with the incense to pray for the people, to give an offering and ask for forgiveness for the people, because they were sinning. It's difficult because, unfortunately, us as humans, all the way back from Genesis, and we'll learn about how it all got started, we don't do the right thing all the time. We think of other things. We think of sins, or we even act upon them. We think of lust and greed and jealousy and all of that. And that's a problem, because that's sin. And the Lord does not, the sin cannot be around the Lord. The Lord is holy. It's opposite of the Lord, with no power. It's just death. And that is not with what the Lord has. He is holy, and he wants his people to be holy. So what kind of thoughts or feelings come to mind when we're reading this? How would you feel? What would you think during this time period? Again, it's always a good time, or it's a good thing to do, is write those things down or type them up on a notepad, or use your notepad that you have or something to make little notes, make little stickies. I know lots of people use sticky notes still. Make little voice messages for yourself about your thoughts and feelings over these verses and what we read. Let's continue to read. Water from the rock. In the first month, the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. There Miriam died and was buried. Now there was no water from the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. They quarreled with Moses and said, "If only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this desert, that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Now, I think these people must have a short memory because they were supposed to go ahead and go into the promised land. However, when they sent the delegation into the land, the delegation came back, and all except for two, gave a report that the land that they were going to was filled with milk and honey, but this is where the report went sideways, was that the people would not be able to, as in Israel, would not be able to take over to defeat the people that were living in the promised land. And so they could not enter. That whole generation could not enter. And they even tried to. They tried to enter, and yet the Lord was not with them. And so they were routed because they had sinned, and they were in rebellion over and over and over and over again. And so now we're seeing that it's been even more time. Now people are starting to pass away due to age, and they're complaining still, complaining even more, complaining and rebelling against Moses and Aaron. And they're bringing up once again Egypt. That's once again they're bringing up Egypt. It's a smack in the face that, it's been a smack in the face, but it's inappropriate. And it just goes to show you just how sideways or on a wrong path people can get when they don't keep their eyes on the Lord. Let's continue to read. And so, why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance to the tent of meeting and fell face down. Amen. I'm just going to put it to you that way. And fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink." So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and where he showed himself holy among them. So now Aaron and Moses are not going to be able to go into the promised land because the Lord gave them instruction And at this point, a lot of Bible scholars and a lot of people believe that Moses basically was just fed up. He was old of age or more mature, and he was just. It was a moment of being tired and a moment of not thinking correctly. But that's sin. The Lord literally just told him, "Raise your staff and go over to this rock, and water's going to pour out." Speak to that rock. So take the staff and speak to the rock. Instead, Moses went to the assembly, yelled at them, and then hit the rock with the staff twice. That was not the directions the Lord gave him. And so now you're seeing a little bit of stumbling, and that can happen even in leaders. But there was at least a little faith there left over, because that's something to think about, that there may have been some faith because water still came out of that rock. And it may just been the Lord just doing what he said he was going to do, provide water from this rock. This is the time to read in depth here and take a look at what's going on. What would you think? How would you feel when it comes to seeing this? Either being Aaron and hearing the Lord at the same time, or being part of the community and wondering where you're going to get your next drink of water. Let's continue to read. Edom denies Israel passage. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, "This is what your brother Israel says. You know about all the hardships that have come upon us. Our forefathers went down into Egypt, and we lived there many years. The Egyptians mistreated us and our fathers, but when we cried out to the Lord, he heard our cry and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. Now we are here at Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your country. We will not go through any field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway and not turn to the right or to the left until we have passed through your territory." But Edom answered, You may not pass through here. If you try, we will march out and attack you with the sword." The Israelites replied, "We will go along the main road, and if we or our livestock drink any of your water, we will pay for it. We only want to pass through on foot, nothing else." Again they answered, "You may not pass through." Then Edom came out against them with a large, powerful army. Since Edom refused to let them go through their territory, Israel turned away from them. The death of Aaron. So the Edom, before I go on, Edom, remember this. Remember what Edom just did, because it's going to be important through the rest of the Old Testament, through parts of the Old Testament, that they denied Israel passage. The death of Aaron. The whole Israelite community set out from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. At Mount Hor, near the border of Edom, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land I give the Israelites, because both of you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Get Aaron and his son Izar and take them up Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments and put them on his son Izar, for Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will die there." Moses did as the Lord commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of the whole community. Moses removed Aaron's garments and put them on his son Izar, and Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Then Moses and Izar came down from the mountain, and when the whole community learned that Aaron had died, the entire house of Israel mourned for him 30 days. So we just saw that slowly but surely this generation is passing, and that included Aaron. Aaron was with them out of Egypt, but again, as we just read over, both Aaron and Moses had a lack of faith. They just let their anger get the best of them, and that's another thing that can be taken from this lesson, is your anger. Do we let our anger get the best of us? So when something wrongs us, or we feel wronged, or we feel that things aren't going right, do we seek God, or do we just go in anger? It also says in the Bible, don't let, be angry, and I can't remember, so don't quote me on this. Something about don't let your anger be when the sun goes down or something like that. But we'll find that verse and say the correct way. But it goes to show us a lot. So let's do a quick review while we still have a few moments left, because I know we're over time. Korah, Dathan, and Abram. We learned about the three men who decided to go up against Moses, and we learned what happened to them. The earth came and swallowed them up. Immediate consequence for rebellion. The budding of Aaron's staff. We learned about that Aaron's staff was used as a sign, and it budded, and it also produced almonds for the Israelites to stop rebellion and stop challenging Moses and Aaron. Duties of the priests and Levites. We learned about how Aaron's tribe Levi, had their duties for the tabernacle. The offerings for the priests and Levites, how they got to consume what was given to the Lord, the first fruits, the best things. We learned about the water of cleansing, about the necessity for the water of cleansing to wash themselves and then be clean by evening. Water from the rock that we just read over, how it was Moses went and struck the rock twice, and because of that he was punished, and unfortunately he won't be able to see the promised land. Edom denies Israel's passage. That's important because you want to remember that. You might want to take note, you want to bookmark it, you want to put it on a sticky, whatever you want to do with that, because that's going to come up again about Edom, the people of Edom. So we'll learn about that. That's not going to go away anytime soon. And then the death of Aaron. So Aaron didn't make it to the promised land, but he did. He went up to the Mount Hor, and he passed away, and the whole community of Israel mourned for him for 30 days. So what kind of thoughts or feelings or questions do you have, or insight that you've been given into today's Bible study? I want to thank you very much for following along once again in Lamp Bible Study. I will continue to be your host. My name is James, and we will continue to read. I will continue to have these every Tuesdays and Thursdays. If this is too long, like the whole Bible study, because it is an hour plus time frame, I do post highlights. Those typically post daily. The ones after Tuesday, I'll typically post at least 4 highlights from one of the Lamp Bible studies. The full Lamp Bible studies, again, are Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you do have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to leave those in the comments. There's also an email contact within the YouTube page, as well as you can always send something on Instagram at Lamp Bible Study with the exclamation point. Again, thank you so much for following along. Praise the Lord that we continue to seek God's wisdom through his holy word. So wherever you are, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night. God bless.